Hey everybody, it is David and Allison with Axis, and today we get to interview Kirk Cameron, and we're excited because he has a new film coming out called Connect, which is all about helping parents understand, have empathy for the world that their students live in, the social media world. And then if you don't know Kirk Cameron, of course you already do, but famous for Growing Pains and Fireproof and Monumental and a handful of different incredible films, provoking great conversations. So Kirk, thanks for letting us interview you today.
Hey, thank you for talking with me and letting me join in on the conversation. I love Axis. I love what you guys are doing because it's helping parents like me and a lot of our friends to better be able to translate what's going on in kid lingo and to bring wisdom into their life in a way that they can understand. And so it's fun when I can throw down some lyrics of a song that they don't I've heard, or I can throw out a combination of emoticons that just makes their eyes pop open and their jaw drop, and they're like, "Dad, that's like the secret code. How did you know?" I'm like, translator by Axis.
Well, hey man, thanks for being on the Culture Translator. That's super. I'm flattered. Are you flattered?
Absolutely, it's so fun to hear.
And we just love it because there's no one more influential than a mom or a dad. So keep dropping the emojis on your kids and the teen slang.
That's right.
So here's our first question for you, Kirk. Well, yes. Allison started off.
Yeah. So just kind of our first general question. This is the Gen Z Faith Summit. So to you, what is the role of faith in parenting this next generation?
Well, it's such an important question. What is the role of faith? And it's interesting as your children begin to grow. So, David, you talked about you have a 5-year-old and you've got the little ones coming up, and in the future, you're thinking about having kids. And in the beginning, you're thinking, "Oh, Lord, just help me get through this pregnancy." There's the role of faith for me, right? And then as the kids get older, of course, you're having your hopes and your dreams, and you're trying to get through the troubles of littles. But as they get older into the teenage years, the concerns become much deeper. Their choices are so much more far-reaching. Spilling a glass of milk. You long for the days when it was just spilling a glass of milk. And so without faith as a parent, raising this generation, I think it's not that it would be, it is catastrophic, because without faith, how do you know the goal of your parenting? How do you know what to parent your kids to? How do you know what is the wisdom that your children need? I mean, faith is a reliance, a dependence, a trust in something. And for me, that reliance is upon the character of God and the Word of God. And I depend on that to give me wisdom as a parent to be able to raise my kids so that they can see and choose wisdom, so that they can honor God with their life. And I know the goal of my parenting because of my faith. So it's central to everything as a parent, not just in this generation with Gen Z, it's Gen X, millennials, everybody. It's central to my life as a parent.
So Kirk, one of the things that I like that you brought up there is you kind of talk about as you transition, as your kids get older, the stakes kind of change. It's more than just a glass of spilled milk now. And it seems like you tackled this idea of technology and social media in your film Connect, which is coming out February 2018. Why did you decide to tackle that? I assume it had to do with raising 6 teenagers, maybe?
That might have something to do with it. So we have 6 children. My wife and I have kids that at one time were 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and a newborn. No nannies. I know, my wife is an angel. My kids, your mom is so amazing. Don't worry about us ever splitting up. If she ever leaves me, I'm going with her. Now our kids are 21, 19, 18, 17, 16, and 14. Wow. So if you feel like praying for us right now in the show, go right ahead. I will receive all the prayers we can get. And one year we decided that we would introduce our kids to the world of smartphones. A couple of the kids had flip phones, but it became increasingly necessary for some of our kids to be able to interact across a couple of platforms when schedules on the soccer team would change. Different things necessitated a bit more technology. So we decided that we would be coaches and mentors and teachers to our kids, rather than saying hands-off stuff that could potentially be dangerous. Let's put our hands on it together, kind of like teaching your kids to drive a car. I would say, I want you to drive a car really well. It's potentially dangerous, but why don't you sit here next to me in my car and get used to what this feels like, and let's take it for a spin down the street. And slowly we'll increase to where we're, driving around the block, and then you're up on the freeway, and then you get your license and you drive on your own. And we thought, now is a good time for us to get our kids this kind of technology so that we can walk with them for a few years before they're off to college. And that's why I made Connect, because we learned an awful lot.
So what are some things that you learned? Because one thing I loved, you interviewed a lot of different PhDs, different thoughtful people who are in this space, but at the same time, I see you as having a PhD, having 6 teenagers, or one recently not teenager. So what did you learn through this process of teaching your kids to drive a cell phone, a smartphone?
So the experts that I interviewed really corresponded to the questions that I was having personally. So number one was, wait a minute, I'm swimming in the deep end here. I don't even know what Snapchat is.
Right.
And so who can tell me about this? And so I learned about Dr. Kathy Cook, who I know is a friend of yours, and she wrote that great book, Screens and Teens. And so I interviewed her, and she talked about those 5 main lies that our kids are being taught by a social media culture. And when she rattled those off to me, I was blown away, because it's exactly what we're all asking. Why do my kids feel like they're the center of the universe? Why do they believe that they deserve to be happy all the time? Why do they think that they should always have choices? Whether it's what they get for dinner or any other area, they think choice is just a built-in guarantee with everything, because their life comes with drop-down menus, from their cameras to their phones to their TV to their computer and everything, all the way through to information is all I need, therefore I don't need teachers. I am my own authority. I can just ask Siri any question that I have. I don't need to go to my mom or my teacher or my pastor, because Google has the answer for me. And I just thought, wow, you're just summarizing so many of our concerns as parents. We feel as parents like we love our kids first and foremost. We want to protect them, but there is like this unstoppable digital current that is seeping in under the doors into our kids' bedrooms, and we're afraid that it's going to just take them away. And so many parents are busy, they're overwhelmed, they're not sure how to even handle all of this, so they either take a freak out approach, which some of our friends have, and said, look, we're just not giving our kids phones at all. We're not letting them, we're just not going to have a computer. We're just going to like live in, 1971, and we're just not going to let anything happen to our kids. The problem with that is one day, of course, they're going to be dropped right back into the real world full of technology, not knowing how to use it. And the other problem is you really can't block all bad content, because the condition of the human heart will produce bad content. And when 1 out of 4 kids today are actually sending naked pictures of themselves to a friend or a stranger, which I learned in my movie, how do you filter that out of your own child's heart? It was their idea. So maybe there's another way. And the other way is to be a coach and a mentor and a teacher to your kids. And we have some principles that we use in our house that have been really helpful. But the idea is to walk with your kids, talk with your kids, be fully present and connected in real relationship with them, so that they can form the healthy habits necessary. And that's why I appreciate so much of what Access does. You put tools in my hands so I can better have those conversations with my kids.
Absolutely. And what would you say to a parent who maybe has kind of lost their voice to what the culture is saying and what this digital current is saying? So some teenager that's really invested in that, how would you tell a parent to kind of regain that voice and regain authority over their child?
That's a really good question.
It's a hard, yeah.
It's a good question. And the only reason it's hard is because as parents, we have allowed others to take our authority away from us. We've given it over to our kids. I hate to put it so bluntly, but we have strong-willed kids and weak-willed parents. And I understand, because it just seems so overwhelming. But listen, you really don't have to get into an argument with your 10-year-old. You don't have to get into a battle of wills with your 16-year-old. There is something that God has given those of us who are parents that is baked into the role of mom and dad. He gave you a rock of authority, and it doesn't move. So stand on it and don't let your kids push you off of it. And that means saying to your kids sometimes, sweetheart, this technology stuff is as new to me as it is to you, maybe even newer. And so I'm trying to work my way through this with you. But here's one thing I know. I love you more than life itself. There's nothing more important to me than your well-being. And I can see by some of the things that you're doing, some of the things that you're saying, you're posting, some of your behaviors are showing me that I think this much access to your phone, this much activity or time on the device is not healthy for you. And so I need you to trust me on this. And I'm praying that God gives me wisdom. And together, let's set some new parameters for how we interact with technology. Because at the end of the day, I'm responsible for your blessing and protection. And I know that that with God's help, we're going to do this right. And that's my main objective. So parents need to have that kind of steel in their backbone. They need to have the courage to stand up and say no to their kids without getting into a fight with them. There's no need to. Don't give up the dignity of your office as a parent. Simply let your kids know that you love them and that you're learning and that you want them to help you understand and you want to help them understand, so that together you can cross the finish line with them going into the world as healthy, functioning adults.
What I loved about what you just said is that you led with blessing and that you led with loving them and caring for them. Yeah. Especially on something that feels so like this is like another arm for me, and you're taking away my prosthetic phone, or like this such a core piece of who I am. I have a question for you about identity. So social media is shaping the next generation's identity. I'm sure you probably have some thoughts on that, but also how have you been able to affirm your children's identity through this time where they may feel it's fragmented or social media is causing them to question it?
My streaming feed there broke up in the middle of your question, but I think I got the gist of it. How do we talk to our kids about identity and establish their identity when so many other things are trying to redefine that for them?
Yeah.
That's okay. Dead on.
I like your wedding ring. What do you have there? I just saw something. What is that? What is that? A double tattoo band?
Yeah, it's tattooed. Got to keep it permanent, man. Permanent.
I got one too. Actually, this is my wife's father who passed away. It's his wedding ring, and I know we're getting off track here. Sorry, guys, but
no, that's fine.
Because I think your wedding ring's cool, but mine is too. So my wife's parents' initials and the date of their wedding is inscribed inside the ring, and so my wife and my initials and date are inscribed on the other side of the inside of her father's ring.
That's awesome.
That qualifies for cool too, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Way to make it count. I love that.
So back to identity. Let's see. I would say that the strategy for parenting has not changed in 4,000 or 5,000 years. And I go back to a guy named Moses, who said in Deuteronomy 6, first of all, love the Lord your God with all your heart, parents, with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Make sure that these commands are in your heart, and then impress them upon your children. And when you do that, when they rise up, and when they lie down, and when they walk by the way, all throughout the day. And part of what we do as parents who have faith in God is that we gain our identity through our relationship to Christ. And I'm to impress that upon my kids. And that doesn't change just because we have Instagram. So while people are creating identities that they want people to see that may not be their real identity, or other people are trying to give our children identity, the best advice anyone ever gave me was be fully present, engaged, and connected with your children And Facebook and Instagram or Snapchat providing any kind of a false identity doesn't stand a chance, because you have a role in their life that is packed with so much power. You're their mom, you're their dad. So take advantage of every ounce of that power to let your kids know how much you love them, and let them know that there's nothing they could ever do or say or wear that could ever make you not love them. They are your son, they are your daughter, and you are well pleased with them. Not because of their image online or the latest great selfie they took or how many followers they have, but simply because you're my son and I love you, and you're my daughter. And guess what? We're part of a bigger family, and that's the family of God. And we're going to spend eternity together. And I'm never going to unfriend you because I'm your dad, I'm your mom. Through thick or thin, we're connected at the soul level.
Can you've mentioned your wife a few times, Chelsea. So how have you guys co-parented through technology? How have you maybe leaned in on her and said, can you take this one? Or she said, hey, Kirk, let's take on this one together. Brag about your wife.
Yeah, well, I could say so many great things about my wife, and so I will. So she's gorgeous. And, we met on the set of Growing Pains. She played Mike Seaver's girlfriend.
Why not?
Yeah, and we've been married for 26 years now. And my wife has really spearheaded so much of this. Of course, I have a job that has me traveling quite a bit, and I'm able to do that and able to make movies because I have my wife is so heavily invested in the day-to-day and the everything with our kids. So some of the principles that she has really spearheaded and that we enforce together are everything's out in the open. So there are no hidden secrets. There's no hidden passwords. You wouldn't let your kids, your 5-year-old or your 10 or your 15-year-old, just connect with anybody, regardless of their character or their beliefs, and spend massive amounts of time with them in hidden places. I mean, that's just crazy, right? Because nobody wants to leave their kids unprotected. And so one of the principles we have is everything's out in the open. If nothing's bad's going on, then let's just keep it right here in the kitchen. It's right here in the den. With regard to apps, what we have done with some of our younger kids is we let them have a phone, but it was so that they could make phone calls, so that we could pick them up from soccer, and they could text a certain, roster of people, but they couldn't text anybody that they wanted to. And as they became more responsible and we saw healthier habits, those things would increase to include other privileges. But when it came to things like Instagram, for instance, my wife installed Instagram on her phone, not on the kid's phone. So if they want to use it, they can use it sitting right next to her in the kitchen or next to me, and it's all out in the open. And no passwords that we don't know. So, my fingerprints and their passcodes are all readily available to me and to my wife, so that the door's always open and the lights are always on. And we found that to be a great principle to have in our house.
Awesome. Has that, just follow-up question to the principles, with your kids immersed with their friends and friend group and school and everything, where their friends are they have everything at their fingertips, has that been a hard conversation for your kids where it is very different maybe than the rest of the culture and their friend group?
Could you clarify that just a little bit? Like, are you saying, do they come home like, wow, Mom, my friends get to have all this stuff, why can't I?
Yes.
I'll say when I have talked to other parents, they say their greatest competition to raising their kids is other parents, because other parents will let their kids do, have Instagram instead of it being on mom's phone, or have Snapchat, or have access to these types of things. So how have you been able to navigate that?
Yeah, David, I can't wait till your 5-year-old becomes 12. This is going to be so great to then play this interview back and then you answer these questions. So, I live in Hollywood, California as a Christian. And one of the things you have to do is have a bit of thick skin You have to understand that you're going to get insulted as a Christian. You're going to get mocked. You're going to get slammed for things. And so you have to have some steel in your backbone and understand that you have to know who you are and whose you are, right? That makes sense for me. And so when the whining and the complaining and the you're not fair and you're a mean parent comes from your own kids, you have to have that same steel in your backbone. And you have to bless those who persecute you. And you have to pray for those who may say false things about you, even if it's your own kids. And what you say is, hey, you know what? I understand that your friends are able to do these things. I understand that their parents feel differently than we do. But sweetheart, I love you with all my heart, and nobody is going to get me to leave you in a place where you're unprotected. I don't want to fail. You're too precious to me, and to guard your heart and to guard your mind is my number one priority. So now if I don't understand something, explain it to me. Show this to me. Explain to me how you could use these kinds of apps in a way that's honoring to God, that's going to be a blessing to you, not a harm to you. And in fact, I'll open it up on my phone right now. Here, show me how you do it. And they can start to walk me through that. I would welcome that, because they're actually learning with me there without a free-for-all attitude that could get them into trouble. Now, of course, our kids are not going to come to us and say, Johnny's looking at pornography and it's okay with his parents. Why won't you let me?
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to be that out in the open about the stuff that they see on the friend's phone that they know is not the right stuff. Mm-hmm. So, again, I think our kids know that we love them, and we're always trying to tie those heartstrings with them, always trying to open the door to opportunity and say yes and say well done and good job as much as we possibly can. But if they make a major mistake or have a bad choice that deserves a serious consequence, the consequence holds. The consequence and the boundaries have to stay there, all within the context of them knowing that we love them and we're doing what we think is best for them. And if they don't understand, well, sweetie, that's why God gave you parents to help you see and choose wisdom. And you're just going to have to trust me because I'm your dad.
So I like that we get to ask you all these really hard questions because I just love it, because you're like in it right now, right? You have. So here's another one for you. How do you think about technology in the age range that you have? So I don't know if your 21-year-old is still under your roof or your 19-year-old is, but you have older kids and younger kids, and I assume there's a process that you're taking them through and where you realize more responsibilities happening, and so they get more privilege. So how did you process that with your wife?
Great question. And we're still processing all this. So I'm coming at all of this as a dad who's trying to figure it out. And again, that's why I so appreciate you guys and what you're doing at Access, because we really are trailblazers when it comes to this digital wilderness. We're like the pilgrims. We're showing up in a place that we're not familiar with, and we're just hoping that we don't get buried by the first storm, that comes in, and that our children make it through. We're guinea pigs in a way. We're pioneer parents. And so Chelsea and I are finding that there's not a one-size-fits-all answer for how much freedom to give your children or at what age they should have a smartphone. We think it's individual and different for each one of our kids. So it's not according to age. I'd say it's according to the choices that we see them making that demonstrates to us how much responsibility and that they can handle. And and the key to that is just being in relationship with your kids, knowing your kids, taking the time, taking a deep breath to not constantly be rushed in my house, to put down my own device and be able to say, tell me about your day. Tell me about, I happen to notice that Kanye West got a new song out, and they're like, Kanye, how did you, Dad, what do you, and I say, hey, I've got friends over at Access that are filling me in on what's going on. And so what do you think about this? And I mean, what do you think about Taylor Swift and what she just did on her Instagram or her Facebook? And we get into these conversations, and I'm not texting this to them. We're having real life face-to-face conversations. And when I see that they have the ability to handle more freedom, more responsibility, we want to give it to them, because the goal is, I mean, no parent wants their child to be 35 years old and still having parental controls on their phone. That's not what we want. We want them to have built-in filters of integrity and godliness, and that's something that we need to teach them through the teenage years. So I think I answered your question. It's the key is relationship. You're never going to know when your child can handle something if you don't study your child and you're not living with them to understand what's going on in their world.
How have you been able to, I mean, speaking of pioneering new territory, technology is brand new for everyone, right? And new things come out all the time. So how have you been able to self-regulate yourself? Or when have you noticed, like, man, I should get off my email now, or maybe I'm texting too much? Have there been situations where you've actually come back to your kids and say, hey, I need to confess, or I need to like limit myself? How do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I think about that a lot, and I like to take advantage of as much technology as I can. Right now, you look at us, you know, we're on Zoom meeting right now, or Skype, or whatever we do, and we're taking advantage of this great technology. We can now send the gospel out all over the world. So I'm pro technology, but even myself, I found that the more I've used my phone and email, and the more I'm posting on Facebook or whatever, I can feel my mind is so segmented and can be so distracted, and just a level of anxiety can just sort of unnaturally permeate my whole mindset. And so one of the things that I've tried to do is really just dial that whole thing down, and from my email to scheduling to Facebook to watching every news feed that comes up from everybody that I'm interested in. I've just got to turn all that down, because I think you really can't have too much information that's not helpful. And so it's finding the level, I think, that works for your capacity or your bandwidth. I wanted to tell you something else here. It'll come back to me.
That's great. In the meantime, can you tell me, when is your beard going to come back to you from the it's kind of my wife has something to do with this. And, for those who don't know why you asked me that question, you saw it in the movie Connect. Is that right? Yeah, you went like head to head with Satan and like a leaf rake, or like a lawn rake and like a battle hatchet, and the beard was what killed him. That's what took him down, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it was a Balrog.
There it was.
And so I want to show. So can I just show a picture really quick?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Here we go. This is the picture, and people are going to say, "Is that really Kirk Cameron?" And it is. It's just not something people are used to seeing. So here, we're going to go up here. There it is. Shaved head and everything.
Bald head, yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's challenging your beard right now, bro.
I feel challenged. I feel smaller, and I'm not ready to face a Balrog. But if I had the beard a little bit more, then
you could.
To be on.
So you know what? It's kind of a winter thing. We're pulling around in the spring here in California, so I might have to wait till next November.
All right.
Hey, so we've run out of time, kind of towards the end here. I'll have Allison ask the final advice question.
Yeah, just what would be your one final advice to parents of teens, and then pointing them to the best resources that you have found and that you use and do on a daily basis?
So again, as a dad who is in the middle of this and figuring it out as he goes, what I'm finding is most important is that technology is not going away, and there will always be new ways for our children to use technology, both for good and for bad. And so what I can hope to do and what you can hope to do is to walk and talk along with them as they go on this journey, giving them wisdom along the way, letting them see that face-to-face real relationships are far superior to a fake relationship with 1,000 people that they've never met and aren't really sure even exist. And so the big advice is be fully present, be faithful to be in relationship with your kids, know your kids, and make sure that they know and believe that you love them. And in the midst of that kind of relationship, I think you're going to do just fine. That would be the biggest piece of advice.
And what's one product that you'd like to direct parents to? Whatever you're working on right now, maybe it's the film Connect. I don't know if there's something else you'd like to promote.
Can I give a couple?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just made a documentary called Connect, which is coming out February 27th in movie theaters around the country. So I highly recommend you go see that, because we talk about all these things and even have testimonials from young adults, teenagers, who talk about their journey in and out of interesting places with regard to technology. So that's called Connect. Then I would say there's a device that we use at our house called Circle with Disney. And it's a device that allows us to not only monitor what our kids are watching and who they're talking to on the internet, but do things like set bedtimes, pause the internet, filter content. This isn't a replacement for parenting. That's a tragedy to think that you can outsource parenting to a piece of technology, but it's a good tool to help you stay connected with your kids. Two other things. One is the Cultural Translator by Axis. Get it, subscribe to it. It's awesome. Is that still free? The Cultural Translator? It's still free. One of the best deals ever. Get that. You have to get it. You'll love it. And then also, Focus on the Family has a digital media guide that I found really helpful. It's a PDF file that you can print off, and it's got great advice, both principles for parenting and also technology that can help you in terms of tools that I think is really helpful.
Well, awesome. Thank you. And thank you so much, Kirk. Thanks for sharing a bit of your story. Thanks for bringing this conversation to the forefront in our country through Connect. So everyone check out Connect. It comes out February 27th, 2018 in theaters. You can check it out. It's a Fathom event, correct?
That's right. That's right.
And,
Fathom.
And thank you for doing this interview, Kirk.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. God bless you guys. Keep up the great work.